Part 50. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 493. City of Steam. In the upper city, the life of the master is indeed very good. Compared to downtown, it's the difference between hell and heaven. After arriving here, Dun Jun discovered that his previous concept was narrow. Between the people in the upper city and the people in the lower city, there is a subtle servant class. The servants selected by the lower city take care of all high life. For example, he was assigned a villa, a butler, 2 maids, and 3 male servants. After these servants were selected, they were extremely excited. After all, there were not many opportunities to escape the hard life in the lower city without going through the abyss game. Dun Jun looked at these handsome men and beauties, thinking that if he knew in advance that there was such a way out, he would not choose to participate in the game. It's a pity that the former him, or most of the workers in the lower city, didn't know about this. The cruel fact is that even if they knew, they would not be able to pass the selection. Daily banquets, invitations from ladies. Dun Jun soon lived a life of extravagance and decadence, but he never forgot his goal. Gradually, he knew that the upper city was controlled by the Steam Council, and that Mr. Zija, and Ms. Alice, who was angry with him at several banquets later, were all members of the council. And these extraordinary people, apart from occasionally needing to contribute their extraordinary power to protect the city of Steam, have almost no constraints. However, outside of the upper city, there is also a core area. It uses an underground elevator as a passage, and is hidden deep underground. It is said that many secrets, even the huge steam power core, are hidden there. If you want to obtain the secrets of prehistoric civilization and the advancement of extraordinary paths, you can only go to the underground core area. And Dun Jun hasn't found a chance yet. But this is not in a hurry, he has plenty of time. It's also fun to socialize with so many ladies every day. Time soon came to night. On this day, he rarely refused all invitations and stayed in the master bedroom. It's about to start. Looking at the already dimmer red moonlight, Dun Jun murmured, lay down on the big soft bed, and fell asleep. Dreamland. The white radiance seems eternal. In a special space that has been opened up, a figure suddenly appeared. Hello, followers of Steam City. Smith saw Dun Jun and greeted him. He knew this local believer, and he was sure that the other party was the same kind who believed in the lost god, otherwise, he would not be attracted by the power of the lost god and came to this collective dream. His pronunciation is still very strange. Is it really a person from another world, summoned by the existence I believe in? Dun Jun murmured in his heart, and also smiled back, good day, Mr. Smith, is your search in the wilderness going well? Everything is going well. I have subdued 2 indigenous tribes and made them realize the glory of our Lord. Smith said, in addition, I have also sent people to explore the locations you gave, and I have gained a little. Dun Jun can gain a lot of knowledge in the upper city, and he has been strengthening his study recently. After becoming an extraordinary, he learned very quickly, let alone recognizing words. Before, in this dream, I communicated with the other party about some easy to explore locations, as well as some undiscovered areas of the city of Steam. Smith has undoubtedly gained something from it. I don't know what the harvest is. Vivian's voice came over, the city I'm in is called Blood Fight City, there are a lot of extraordinary people here, they like to build a huge circular open-air arena, and put slaves and monsters in it to fight. This makes me feel as if I am living in the Middle Ages, no, an even older age. Fortunately, they still respect the strong and don't value gender. Dun Jun knew that the god of immortality, that is, the god of lost, summoned many believers from other worlds to come to this world to wander. In fact, among them, there were also many casualties. So far, only Vivian and Smith have successfully stabilized, established a dream connection with him, and communicated with each other every once in a while. These two believers are indeed devout believers in the immortal God. Dun Jun knew very well that they even took risks and entered hell in an alternative way, just to fulfill the oracle issued by the gods and find the secret of the cataclysm of prehistoric civilization. This is also his task, although his strength is much lower than the two church members. Dun Jun also wants to work hard to complete the task of the gods, not only because of the whispers in his ears, but also because he now knows that it is because of the protection of the gods that he can walk out of hell and luckily obtain extraordinary power. What's even more unbearable is the technology and food in Bloodfight City. They are still in the primitive farming stage, and the land yield is very low. I suspect that slaves need to be placed in gladiatorial battles because they can't supply a lot of food consumed in the field. Vivian is still complaining. In comparison, the city of Steam can at least maintain the minimum living needs of everyone. Do you only rely on the land outside the city for food? Are you not afraid of monster attacks? This is very troublesome. Dun Jun thought for a while. Although we have opened up some plantations outside the city, the real production seems to be underground, using some mysterious method. It's just, I don't think the lower floors of the city of Steam are alive. How nice. If given the chance, I hope to change all that. There will definitely be a chance, as long as our Lord comes. Vivian pursed her lips and smiled. It feels like we are a bit like heretics. No, in the last world, we were. Well, let's get down to business. I found a part of the broken map in the city of Bloodfight, which seems to be able to be combined with some of the clues you provided. As she spoke, a rough map appeared. Many places on it were familiar to Dun Jun. They seemed to be the places that Steam City had explored, and there were records in the books. Strange, if the distance between the two cities is not too far, why has there been no communication? No. Maybe it's just that I don't know. Dun Jun laughed at himself inwardly. The incomplete part on your side, plus the one in my hand, should be able to piece together a complete road map, plus some information obtained by Dun Jun. There should be relics of prehistoric civilization here. Smith pointed to a place on the map with bright eyes. I will start exploring immediately. You can join too. I'm fine. Vivian nodded. I also try my best. Dun Jun wanted to go out with these two strong men, so he wouldn't be a hindrance, would he? Mobile version of Bai Chinese website, m.81zw.us. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 494. Latest URL. Wilderness. A small group gathered and began to wander into the dark land. Dun Jun was also in this team. In fact, some not-so-corrupt extraordinary people in the upper city would occasionally come to the wilderness to search for some relics and special materials. Although he didn't form a team with others, he was quite special, but he didn't deserve much attention. 300 meters ahead, a nightmare beast appears. Vivian flew into the sky and landed after a while, definitely speaking. Nightmare beasts? There are some troubles, they are blocking our only way. Smith looked at the map. It is too far to go around, and there are some dangerous areas. How many? 3 heads. That's just right, one person solves it one by one. Oh, Dun Jun, you are too weak, just hold one end. Smith took it for granted. I'm going to lure the monsters. If I can attract them one by one, it will be the best result. Dun Jun's head was full of black lines, and information about the nightmare beast emerged in his mind. They are changeable, and it is said that they feed on nightmares and can switch between reality and reality. There is no doubt that this is an alien in the wilderness, much stronger than those disgusting flesh and blood monsters. The most important thing is, they don't have a fixed shape, and they have a strange shape-shifting ability. The next moment, Smith's scream came. They are too vigilant, they rushed over as soon as I used the spell. Be careful. Dun Jun looked around and saw 3 black dog-like nightmare beasts. Their fur is pitch black, their eyes are scarlet, and there are no fangs in their mouths, only a bunch of disgusting tentacles. It seemed that they had discovered that there were still people ambushing. Two of the nightmare beasts suddenly roared, and the jet black fur flowed like water, gathering on its back, forming bat-like wings. Puff! They jumped up and flew straight up. Sure enough, it can fly. Vivian seemed to have expected it a long time ago, and cast a spell. In the void, some inexplicable and fierce shadows seemed to emerge, falling on the two nightmare beasts, causing them to fall from mid-air, whimpering a few times, but seemed to arouse their ferocity even more, and pounced on them. The power of the spell has been weakened a lot. Vivian sighed, dodged vigorously, pulled out a bronze dagger, and confronted a nightmare beast. The remaining end threw itself directly at Dunjun. Steel skin. Dunjun let out a low cry, and his skin immediately became harder than steel. This was handled in a timely manner. Because almost in the next moment, the black monster threw him to the ground, and many tentacles rolled towards his neck. It's disgusting. Dunjun cursed in his heart, his eyes turned into snake-like vertical pupils, exuding a strange luster. He gained a lot from that trip to hell. In addition to the steel skin, there is also an extraordinary ability, the pupil of petrification. This seems to be the influence of the giant bone snake monster, which can cause his eyes to mutate and emit petrified light. Many tentacles stopped at once, and a layer of off-white stone appeared on the surface. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Dunjun kicked the monster hard in the stomach, sending it flying. The hound-like nightmare beast suddenly spread its wings in mid-air, and after a few circles, it resolved the pain and petrification, as if looking for an opportunity to pounce. Dunjun turned over and got up, feeling a little guilty. His steel skin requires physical strength and mysterious power to maintain, and may not be able to withstand the next attack. At this moment, he saw two groups of shadows emerging from midair, each stretching out its tentacles, engulfing the nightmare beast. It turned out that Smith and Vivian had solved their opponents at some point, cast spells together, and restrained the last nightmare beast. Let's solve it quickly. With the thought in his mind, Smith quickly retracted his tentacles, tearing the monster into several pieces. The corpse of the nightmare beast fell and turned into black air currents before disappearing. Dunjun knows that this is the characteristic of this kind of monster, as long as a period of time. You can continue to be reborn, which is simply unreasonable. When I come back, I probably have to kill them again. Smith shook his head, walked through the territory with Vivian and Dunjun, and saw a hill. The hill was hundreds of meters high, inserted into the ground at an oblique angle, as if there was a huge mountain under the ground, which made Dunjun feel awkward no matter how he looked at it. This is not a mountain. Smith came to the edge of the mountain, a trace of black shadow penetrated into the soil, and suddenly said, "This is a fallen spaceship, most of it is underground, and a part of the exposed body has evolved over a long period of time, covering a whole area. Layers of rock and soil became this mountain. This." Looking at the towering mountain, Vivian exclaimed, "Even our world has just reached the level of launching rockets, and the spaceship is just the content of the world. Prehistoric civilization is so advanced? I just hope that its hatch is open, or there is some kind of open passage." Smith probed again, and his expression became solemn. "Otherwise, with our strength, I'm afraid we won't be able to break through its defense." Spacecraft. Dunjun felt as if he was flipping through the materials of advanced mathematics in the upper city, and his head was a little confused. Although he could understand every word Smith and the others said, he couldn't even understand the meaning of it. In a daze, he watched Smith and Vivian jointly explore and dig tunnels. According to Smith, they were fairly lucky and found a hatch. And, being open, although the entrance is blocked by many rocks, it can be emptied. After some excavation, he watched the other party use a spell to melt the stone, open a passage, and lead him into a certain door. After entering, the world suddenly became very different. The silver-white sci-fi metal tunnel occupied Dun Jun's field of vision. ZZ. When they walked into the second fork, along with the sound of poor contact, the street lights turned on one by one. I don't know how many thousands of years later, is there still energy in this spaceship that can be used? Vivian was surprised when she saw this scene. It's really unimaginable technology, Smith also nodded. Why, are there no steam pipes and gears? Dun Jun's eyes were very blank. They walked for 10 minutes and entered a hall. This seems to be a gathering point somewhere, with long tables and chairs, no human beings and remains were found, and the ground is full of dust. In front of it is a big screen. Diddy. Their entry seemed to activate some kind of device, and a beam of red light swept across Smith and Vivian, and finally landed on Dun Jun, turning green. On the screen, gray and white dots flickered, showing an image, in which was a middle-aged man with a bald head. I am the captain of this ship, and all members on the comet are infected with the dust disease, and our Federation is also infected. I'm sick, the whole universe is sick, the ship is about to crash land, every member is doing their job well, our great lads just want to rest for a while. The picture distorted for a while, and another piece of news jumped out. On it was a handsome young man who was reading out a document. I am the Speaker of the Federation General Assembly Fang Xian, and I am deeply saddened to tell all the people of the Federation, an unfortunate news. Latest URL. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 495. A new type of disease is spreading rapidly in the Federation. All medical personnel have tried their best, all planets, cities, and mining areas have begun martial law. Inside the metal hall, Smith and the others looked at the young speaker's speech without blinking their eyes. It's called dust disease, the cause of the disease is unknown, and its onset is extremely fast, and it can kill a healthy adult within a day. The onset of dust disease appears on the hands or feet. A large number of unknown gray spots are the sign, and the initial stage enters the acute stage very quickly, perhaps only a few hours. When the gray covers a certain area, the flesh and blood tissue in that area will necrosis and split, turning into real dust and ash. Even amputation can't stop the spread of the disease. The force practitioners of the Federation also have nothing to do about it, they are also sick. On the screen, Fang Xian spoke in a leisurely manner. And Smith frowned. Do you think, this is obviously a speech against diseases, and the introduction and description of the dust disease by the chief speaker is too detailed? It shouldn't be. Is it the medical officer's business? It's a bit strange. Vivian wanted to continue watching, but found that the screen suddenly went black, as if something went wrong. Hey, look what I found. Dun Jun made a sound in a corner. Smith and Vivian walked over and saw a set of broken spacesuits in the dust. Its production technology should be quite advanced. Even after a long time of washing, some outlines can still be seen at this time. There is also a lot of dust in and around the clothes. If it was before, I would think it was a set of discarded clothes. Now it seems that its owner is here, died of dust disease, reduced to ashes. Smith said. After searching, they found a few more broken clothes, and their expressions became more dignified. Dust disease. This seems to be the chief culprit that caused the collapse of a prehistoric civilization, and it weighs on their hearts like a huge mountain. When we came in, we didn't take enough protective measures. Smith suddenly said. I think, after such a long time, any germs should have died out. Vivian was startled, and then answered uncertainly. Prehistoric civilizations also had extraordinary people, and even they were helpless against this disease. It may not be a disease in the ordinary sense. Smith shook his head. Unfortunately, their next search was in vain. The passages leading to some important places have thick metal gates, which cannot be opened no matter how hard they try. Naturally, space spells and the like cannot be used in this world. Our food reserves and mental strength are not enough, let's go out first. The three of Smith met and made a decision. We have found the location where the spaceship crashed, and we can continue to explore in the future. Dun Jun didn't have the slightest opinion, and followed the two out of the spaceship. Staying in this metal-style building always gave him a feeling of depression. Climb out of the tunnel. The scarlet moonlight fell. Dun Jun subconsciously raised his hand to cover his eyes, the dazzling light. His eyes wandered and landed on his right hand, his expression suddenly changed. This is. At the tip of his right finger, some dense, gray spots emerged impressively. Dun Jun suddenly felt dizzy. Dust disease. Terminal illness of prehistoric civilization. The demon that extraordinary humans can't get rid of has already entangled him. What? Smith and Vivian watched this scene, their expressions changing continuously. If so, doesn't that mean they might be infected too? Smith raised his hand subconsciously, and found a touch of gray at the position of the little finger of his left hand. His pupils instantly shrank into needle eyes. The triangular red moon is offset to the west, which is the night of this world. Near the hill, a flame was burning, and a monster was roasting on it. The three of them sat around, none of them in the mood to eat. Dust sickness did infect them, and quickly. At this time, the most serious Dun Jun, gray has spread to the shoulders, is invading the chest. He had begun to lose the touch of his palms. Perhaps, it won't be long before the whole person will be reduced to ashes. And even the power of the steel skin and petrified pupils could not stop the spread of the disease. The same is true for Smith and Vivian. They tried various methods and chanted various spells, but there was no effect at all. Are we going to die? Dun Jun murmured, death in the outside world is better than bringing this virus back to the city and destroying mankind. Smith and Vivian looked at each other. They are not yet desperate or hysterical, because they still have faith and the last card. Pray. Pray to our gods. The gods must have a solution for the ailments that mortals cannot solve. Smith spoke. Not long after, the voices of three people prayed, the master of the alchemist, the master of the calamity, the god of immortality, your believers beg you, listen to the call of the believers. The ups and downs of the voice echoed over the wilderness. Not long after, Dun Jun felt mentally blurred for a while. The next moment, he found himself in a dream, standing on a huge square. In the eternal light, a pair of incomparably huge and indescribable eyes opened, looking down indifferently. Is this the body of the immortal god? Dun Jun was extremely surprised. This may be the first time he saw part of the god's face in a waking state. The huge eyes seemed to move, but didn't seem to move. But the surrounding pure white radiance fell down in unison, like a river of light waterfall, enveloping the three of them. A trace of grey breath spread from Dun Jun's hand and was quickly melted away. Praise my lord. The excited voices of Smith and Vivian came. Is the god of immortality cured me? Looking at his hands, Dun Jun hurriedly followed Smith's example and thanked him. Very dangerous stuff. Under the abyss, Fang Xian opened his eyes. Due to the strong seal, he did not monitor his followers all the time, and now it seemed that they were almost wiped out. Fortunately, as long as they call, I can know immediately, and some power will descend through Dreamland to rescue. Tell me, what happened? This sentence turned into a terrifying thought, sweeping across Dreamland. Smith and the others felt a terrible voice fall, and just listening to it made them tremble all over and almost went crazy. However, in the sound, they did understand the meaning of the gods, and quickly told the process of exploration one by one, and used their ideas to construct a holographic image. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 496. I am the President of the Federation General Assembly Fang Xian. I am very sad to tell all the people of the Federation, a sad news. Looking at the picture in the memory of the three, Fang Xian fell silent for a moment. He is indeed very familiar with the person named Fang Xian and that face, although it is not his future face, but it is the face in the interstellar world. When did I become the supreme ruler of the Federation? No. I was already dead at that time. My flesh and blood were sacrificed to the starry sky giant I, and the true spirit was reincarnated, leaving nothing at all. Maybe he was pretending to be me? How could he have such evil intentions and specifically target me? God, besides the God of all things, I can't think of a second one. But there is a more terrifying possibility. Maybe, he is pretending to be me, or maybe, he really replaced me in another timeline? It's unlikely. I became De Luo, and my own timeline has been completed closed loop, although there are some small flaws in this world, but they will not be easily replaced. Fang Xian thought quickly. Sure enough, the catastrophe in this world is inseparably related to the God of all things. He wiped out most of the creatures with dust disease, and then reset the universe? No. He doesn't have this kind of power. It's better to say that the spread of the dust disease caused the imbalance of the power of the universe, and many evil gods became active, eventually leading to the destruction of the world. And what is the purpose of the omnipotent God? Fang Xian thought for a while, then continued to look at Meng Xiang. Although the dust disease is terrifying, a true God can still easily solve it. Dun Jun knelt down and saw the figures of Smith and Vivian disappear. They have completed their mission and returned to different countries. Seeing this scene, he felt a little lost. Immediately afterwards, another raving came. Ah! Dun Jun's eyeballs were bloodshot, and the blood vessels on his forehead were bulging, almost as if they were going to explode. He rolled on the ground, but understood the meaning of the great God. That disease, the plague named dust, spreads through content. Simply put, as long as someone hears the relevant description or sees the relevant information, it will cause infection. This is a mental illness. It has the characteristic of terror that can be spread when known. And although his own disease has been resolved, it has only been suppressed with a little power of the Great One. Simply put, if Dun Jun described the dust disease to others, he would be fine, but it would definitely lead to the spread of the dust disease. This seems an opportunity. I have mastered a powerful weapon, a weapon that can easily overturn the rule of the upper city. A slightly crazy smile appeared on Dun Jun's face. Although he seems to be indulging in all kinds of enjoyment in the upper city, in his heart, he has never forgotten that wish. A plan to break up the dominance of uptown and make lower town less bad. It's feasible. Even prehistoric civilizations can't resist the dust disease, nor can the extraordinary in the upper city, and the natural blockade of the upper city and the lower city. It can even create a certain degree of isolation. How can people in the upper class let the people in the lower class know what disease they have? This is an opportunity. Even if it gets out of control in the end, as long as everyone believes in the God of immortality, everything will be fine. Dun Jun didn't realize that his eyes became a little crazy. Looking at this scene, Fang Xian felt a little ashamed. Is this influenced by what I just said? Although he just passed some normal information, he was half crazy. There is an element of madness in reason. Coupled with the personality of the Great One, even believers who just listen to his voice will be tortured by pain, but they never get tired of it, as if they have awakened some strange habit. In addition, if you listen too much, you may be affected by the hidden madness and become a little crazy and neurotic. A normal person, who would think of using such a weapon? Besides, it's too rough. There is no guarantee that it will not spread and accidentally injure. If one is not careful, this civilization will also be destroyed. I don't have much power to break the seal. I can save a few, but I can't save tens of thousands. A smile appeared on the corner of Fang Xian's mouth, but, what does it matter to me? The demise of Shangcheng district was indeed an opportunity for Dun Jun, and it was also a chance to break into the core area. As for whether there will be any mistakes in the implementation of the plan, that is not a question he should think about. Uptown. Back to Dun Jun, who was feasting and feasting, Yi Rong came to a trading fair for extraordinary people. This is the market where extraordinary people trade, and everyone hides their bodies. He knows that this place looks like a black market, but it is actually still controlled by the council in the core area. Everything in the entire city of Steam is under the control of the council. With this in mind, he walked into a room. The customer, what do you want to sell or buy? A waiter in a tuxedo immediately greets you. Sell a piece of information, and get it from exploring the ruins. Dun Jun under the mask said hoarsely, part of the truth about the destruction of prehistoric civilization. The corner of his mouth curled up, knowing that this place is also controlled by the core area, and those bigwigs would not even buy it, but directly read the information he gave. The smile on the corner of Dun Jun's mouth deepened, and he took a pen and paper and wrote down the information about the dust disease. He has already learned to write, and this time, he deliberately used his extraordinary ability to make his handwriting softer and more delicate. I'm consigning it here, and everyone who spends 100 yuan can see it. Dun Jun smiled slightly, and left the room directly after speaking. The seeds have been planted, and the next thing to do is to wait and wait for the plague to ferment. Underground, core area. A palm covered with jewel rings of various colors gently caressed the seat. He lives high on the throne, rules the city of Steam, and dominates everything here. Even the extravagant life in the upper city is just an adjustment for him. Flipping through the documents with his slender and strong palms, his eyes suddenly focused, with an expression of interest, prehistoric ruins, part of the truth about the cataclysm. He thought for a while, quickly wrote a note, put it into a long tube, opened the armrest of the seat, and there was a pipe inside. After stuffing the long barrel into the channel, a series of machines started running immediately. After the long tube was transported, it came to a certain place underground. The huge difference engine and analysis engine roared, and the mechanical arm sorted information one by one. In a certain secret compartment, the news received today was sent to the transmission belt, transported quickly, passed through the pipeline, and came to his desk. Snapped. An iron box was opened, and brand new information emerged. He grabbed the letter with enjoyment and began to read it in detail. His expression became puzzled. Dust disease. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 497. Dun Jun felt that the atmosphere in Shangcheng district was a bit weird. A trace of cloud seems to be weighing on everyone's heart. Ladies are no longer keen on balls and banquets, and some private gatherings have quietly become more frequent. Even Zija and Alice, who were in charge of connecting the upper city and the core area, disappeared without a trace, causing the situation to keep slipping into the abyss. Gradually, there were fewer and fewer high-class people in the upper city, as if they had disappeared. Dun Jun knew that they might have gone out to escape, or they might have turned into dust. After all, the onset of dust disease was very fast. He dismissed all his servants and quietly waited for the judgment to come. God of immortality, the people here are greedy, depraved, and bloodthirsty, but please accept their souls and forgive their sins. Dun Jun stood by the window, looking at the dead city, muttering to himself. Boom. Suddenly, he heard a knock on the door. Dun Jun opened the door and saw a tightly wrapped old man in a coat. Old Henry? He frowned and called out the person's name. Thank you, Lord of the Great Eye, you are still here, you are fine. Old Henry came in without taking off his coat and gloves. His eyes were bloodshot, and he walked back and forth uneasily. I visited a lot of people, something is wrong, you know, a mysterious curse is spreading in our upper city, many people died, reduced to ashes. Actually, it's not a curse, it's just a plague, but from a mysterious perspective, the curse seems to be very appropriate. Dunjun was talking to himself in his heart. So? He raised his eyebrows and asked. I know that the curse was first spread from the core area. I saw the change in Alice, and it was her. Old Henry said with a frenzied expression, some people are planning to leave. We are about to perish, and the only way for us to survive is to unite, occupy the elevator, and hit the core area. It's a good idea, but, I haven't been cursed, why should I go all out? A look of panic appeared on Dunjun's face, and he took 2 steps back. It's you, Mr. Henry, how is your health? I'm fine, the great Lord of Eyes has given me blessings, as long as I keep getting magical eyes, I will be fine, for sure. Henry murmured, his eyes suddenly turned black and red. Yeah, you are not sick, your eyes can heal me. Stab it? While talking to himself, his body swelled, his clothes tore open, revealing a terrifying body under the cover. On his right shoulder, eyeballs grew out one after another, densely covered like sarcoma, which would definitely make people with trypophobia scream. His right hand also turned into a sharp claw, containing unspeakable filth and evil, exuding blood and terror. But the left half of his body turned gray and black, like a shriveled limb with a few cracks on it. Eyeballs don't cure your disease, old Henry. Dunjun said loudly, and immediately saw old Henry waving a huge right claw that was completely out of proportion to his body. Just holding onto the ground, the person flew in front of him. Boom! As if being hit head-on by a locomotive, Dunjun flew upside down, slamming his back against the wall, leaving a lot of cracks. He's gone crazy. Old Henry exhaled white air from his nose, and the muscles in his right arm were constricted. He suddenly fused many eyeballs into one bigger eyeball. The spiritual power with a strong sense of profanity and pollution emanates out, making Dunjun feel that the surrounding environment has become blurred. The next moment, he saw that giant claw coming in front of his eyes. The tip was only a line away from the pupil. My lord, bless me, eyes, give me. Old Henry muttered, gray suddenly spread to his neck. His left body suddenly turned into ashes, followed by his right body. In the blink of an eye, this powerful terrorist turned into dust and dissipated. Dunjun looked blankly, looking at the shriveled clothes. Your God didn't bless you. He looked around, it's not safe here. Dunjun thought for a while, but instead of cleaning up the scene, he went to the basement, dug out a cellar, and lay down in it. The above damage can be seen as a sign that he has fled or died. And with his simple relationship, there will be no one who will chase after him fiercely. As long as he waits quietly, dust disease can solve all opponents for him. Time flies. During the 3 days and 3 nights, Dunjun sometimes heard wailing, and sometimes heard prayers and screams. Even the moment of encountering demons has been activated several times, dragging people in the upper city into hell. The most dangerous thing was the location of the elevator, where many battles had already broken out. And since last night, everything has been silent. If the problem of dust sickness had not been solved, then the people of the upper city were all dead, dying under the terrible disease. Night. The slate was pushed away, and Dunjun came out. Is it all over? He knew that he might be the only one who dared to go out and take action in Shangcheng district at this time. The spread of dust disease, if you don't know the principle, the lethality is too terrifying, and the spread speed will be very fast. And he suspected that even if he didn't know the content, witnessing the dust disease with his own eyes would also cause infection. Apart from the fact that he has the protection of the god of immortality, there should be few living people in Shangcheng at this time. It's time to start taking action, before the chaos spreads completely in the lower city. Dunjun murmured and came to the center of Shangcheng district. Originally, there should be a large number of guards here. But at this time, walking through the dilapidated streets, he could see steam armors distorted, destroyed, randomly discarded by the side of the road. More battle armors remained intact, standing there quietly, as if their hosts had fallen apart in the matches and turned into ashes. The bloodstains became more glaring near the lifting platform. It seems that the rebels have made multiple attacks against this entrance. Dun Jun doesn't care if they succeed or fail. After so many days, the dust disease is enough to deal with all the rioters. He came to the lifting platform and turned the joystick. The advantage of steam steel power is that although it is stupid and thick, except for the fragile steam pipes, other machinery is still very solid and durable. Amidst the sound of gears turning, the huge lifting platform started slowly and sank to the ground. Layer after layer of steel grids flashed in front of his eyes. Dun Jun seemed to be experiencing a wonderful journey. His mood was extremely calm, even though he saw a large number of traces and ashes of battles underground, he was still the same. He searched and came to a council hall, where he could see around the highest throne, all kinds of dazzling gemstone rings and gorgeous clothes scattered. On the black velvet cushion, only a pile of ashes remained. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 498. Dun Jun walked in the core area. This is a country with a large scale and a high degree of mechanization. Yes, he wanted to use country to describe this place. The huge difference engine and analysis engine controls a large number of steam servants and dominates everything in the country. A large amount of materials can be produced without much manpower. It can be said that this is a perfect post-disaster country that can achieve self-sufficiency. He walked through the greenhouses where various fungi were grown, through the steam factories full of mystery and punk style, through the underground castles of those real big men. No one came to stop him. In other words, those big shots didn't discover the truth about the spread of the dust disease, or they knew the contents actively or passively, and after being infected, they died one after another. The core area didn't seem to have thought that there would be a day when all the congressmen died unexpectedly, but there were no enemies, and they were still operating mechanically according to the laws of the past. Without a doubt, Dun Jun first swept through the libraries of the counselors. It turns out that, the entire underground world has entered a highly steam-intelligent society. The huge difference engine Hope and the analysis engine Dawn dominate everything underground and provide various information supports for the speaker. The steam-powered core furnace is a magical item with extraordinary power, named Monster. It can burn continuously, and extraordinary monsters are the best fuel. In addition, human corpses, coal, sundries, the effect decays successively. It seems that maintaining its extraordinary effect requires order and the pain of a large population gathering, therefore, the city of steam retains the existence of the lower city. There was a sneering smile on Dun Jun's face. In other words, the council is clearly capable of making everyone's life better, but it deliberately exploits the laborers with cruel working hours and heavy work. Even if they die, the dead bodies will be transported to be incinerated. Sure enough, every drop of blood and oil has been squeezed out. He threw down a manuscript that he got from the speaker's study room, but there was a look of doubt on his face. This speaker knows more about the cataclysm than I do. He only vaguely knows that in the monster furnace, may have some secrets, but the premise is to extinguish it. Dun Jun walked out of the study. With the blessing of the immortal god, plus his own extraordinary ability, some underground traps and extraordinary curses did not have any effect on him. Moreover, he is already in a half-mad state. If the furnace is extinguished, the entire city of steam may be destroyed. But in order to complete the task entrusted to him by the gods, he is still determined to do so. Perhaps this is half-madness. The surface is calm, but the heart hides madness. Dun Jun pursed his lips and walked through a pile of ashes. He grilled a few mushrooms as a meal, and immediately began to go to the core area, where the steam furnace was located. At this moment, a low whisper sounded in his ear again. This made him feel better, as if the immortal god was watching him all the time, which made him feel extremely happy and satisfied. Under the gaze of the gods, he walked through the passageway with extraordinary traps and came to the center of the core area. Came to the edge of a cliff, looked down. You can see a huge steam-powered furnace. It is huge and is the heart of the entire city of steam. Even now, it is constantly burning, devouring the coal and corpses transported by the conveyor belt, exuding a scorching temperature. The heat wave was rolling in, and Dun Jun felt that his hair was curling and scorching. He tried his best to keep his eyes open and looked in the direction of the furnace. Huge, extremely high temperature, it really is a strange thing, but for the sake of my lord's mission, you should extinguish it. A series of complicated procedures are required for the monster furnace at the core of the operation to be extinguished. At present, Dun Jun does not have the authority to command the two difference engines and analysis engines. Therefore, he chose the most direct means. Boom! Boom! Accompanied by several loud noises, the crawlers that originally transported the fuel broke, and countless black charcoal fell into the abyss. After losing the fuel, the monster furnace is still burning. After all, it has accumulated terrifying energy before. Dun Jun remained silent, choosing to wait. 1 red moon hour, 2 red moon hours, after an unknown amount of time passed, the crimson light of the furnace gradually dimmed. The bright red color on its surface disappeared and turned into a dark brown color, revealing some strange patterns. It seems to be the text of a prehistoric civilization. Unfortunately, I can't understand it. I was able to understand those strange pronunciations directly in the spaceship, or Smith gave me the blessing of the gods. At this moment, the murmur of a god seemed to sound in Dun Jun's ear. He felt that those patterns suddenly became understandable again. The quaint words seemed to be struggling and beating, wanting to overflow with all the filth and evil it contains. Eternal sleep, death, hot, extinguished. Dun Jun identified one by one, and finally composed a sentence: the one who sleeps in the belly of the monster is not the dead. Even death will be burned in the blazing fire. What do you mean? Could it be that, are there any living things in the furnace? Dun Jun thought it was impossible. In the monster furnace, extremely high temperatures are maintained all the time. Even extraordinary people cannot last for a long time, and their mysterious power will be exhausted very quickly. Is there anything that can stay in the belly of the furnace forever, and even the ever-burning flame will become the source of its resurrection? Click. Cracks appeared on the surface of the furnace. This ancient antique finally seemed to be destroyed because it had reached the end of its life. Part of its hearth shattered, revealing the vast space within. Ashes, lots of ashes. On top of the ashes, there are unburned coals, as well as the corpses of some monsters and humans. Crunch, crunch. The sour chewing sound came from the stove. Dun Jun saw a figure. It was a naked man with his hair and eyebrows all burned off. He seemed to have been sitting in the furnace, sitting on top of many burning coals, and calmly put a section of the monster's corpse into his mouth. Along with the devouring, around his body, traces of flames burned. This is the truth about the furnace of wonderful objects. In fact, it was just an ordinary old-fashioned giant steam engine, but because it became a tomb or a canteen of a certain creature, it possessed mysterious power. No, this mysterious creature may have died a long time ago, and the ashes are in this mechanical furnace. However, after being discovered, the long-lasting flame awakened it. It devours monsters and releases mysterious flames. Wait, this face. Dun Jun saw that face clearly, and immediately took a few steps back. The man who ate the monster had exactly the same face as the Federation General Assembly Speaker Fang Xian that he saw in the spaceship before. Recommend the new book of Urban Master Lao Shi. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 499. Dun Jun's heartbeat seemed to stop. He had also guessed what secrets were hidden in the furnace before. But no matter what, he never thought that the prehistoric civilization's president of the Federation would hide here. According to Smith and Vivian's speculation, the federal speaker may be the chief culprit for the spread of the dust disease. His public speeches completely destroyed the entire Federation. Then, the city of Steam where he lives, also half destroyed by dust disease. What kind of irony is this? At this moment, the man who devoured the monster slowly turned his head. The eyes of the two met across the void, and Dun Jun could see a happy smile on the man's face. He stood up slowly, the flames wrapped around him, automatically weaving into a bright red close-fitting robe. Even without eyebrows and hair, it does not detract from his unique charisma. At this time, the man in the scarlet robe grinned and said something that Dun Jun could not understand. "Fang Xian, you are finally here." Fang Xian? Isn't that his own name? Why did he say coming? Dun Jun looked around suspiciously. On the cliff, he was the only one. However, the next moment, a low murmur sounded, flooding his consciousness, leaving him in a state of incomparable joy, surrounded by infinite divine power. "Yes, I'm coming." From the mouth of Dun Jun, a completely different voice suddenly came out. "It's Fang Xian." In other words, after breaking the seal, at a certain point in time, he hid part of his will on Dun Jun. "You are not the god of everything." Looking at his second body, Fang Xian said with certainty. "Yes, I am not that great being." The man in the furnace chuckled and said, "The one who came after you sacrificed the starry sky giant he saved me. No, it should be said that he saved your flesh and blood, recondensed your body, and nourished it. On the body, the remaining spirit gathers and becomes me, another Fang Xian. With the help of the power of God, I started revenge. After all, I also died at the hands of the Federation, so I continued to climb up, became the president of the Federation, and spread a disease, which destroyed the Federation. After that, I'm going to die too. Life always comes to an end, doesn't it? However, that being gave me the last revelation, asking me to incinerate myself in a certain furnace. His voice has been echoing in my mind. The one who sleeps in the belly of the monster is not the dead. In the fiery even death will be extinguished in the fire of the fire. After a long and unknown period of darkness, at a certain moment, I was resurrected. I can feel it. That is the moment when you become a god, because I am too part of you." On the cliff, Fang Xian's expression became extremely solemn. "The God of all things didn't travel to my death, because the closed time loop when I became a Deluo was too strong, and he couldn't break it. After all, it is just an incarnation. Therefore, the node he chose to intervene is after I left the second world. This is indeed a blind spot, and my power of Deluo cannot cover it. He revived the body I left behind, and nurtured it to give birth to another spirit. That is, another me. The identity in this state is like a clone of the main body, and it will definitely have a certain impact on him. Now, everything is as God expected. You have come before me." The man in the furnace laughed loudly. "I want revenge, not just revenge on the Federation, but also revenge on you who abandoned me." He guessed right. Someday in the future, your believers will carry you part of your sanity. Come before me. Raging. The next moment, the man in the scarlet robe suddenly turned into a flame and rushed in front of Dun Jun. He whispered, and even the words brought a little power, "I will swallow this part of your reason. This will really make me have part of the essence of the gods, and your body, under the seal. If you lose, will this bit of rationality get out of control and become crazy?" When shaking Fang Xian with words, he had already made a move. Fang Xian suddenly felt a powerful attraction coming from the eyes of the bald man opposite. This part of the spirit and reason really wanted to break away from Dun Jun and merge with the bald man opposite. Even if the opponent is replaced by a god, this is impossible. But the bald man did it, because to some extent, he is a clone of Fang Xian. There is a strong tendency to converge with Fang Xian's spirit. Of course Fang Xian can't allow this to happen. Although his power is not much, it carries precious rationality. But his body is at a very delicate stage, still contains a lot of madness, and reason just has the upper hand. If this part of sanity is lost, it may lead to a complete collapse, making the main body directly inclined to madness. So, the structure and seal of this world is really a trap. In order to prevent my main body from descending and exerting my strength, I can only allocate part of my rationality and divine power to be swallowed up by this rebellious clone opposite. The incarnation of the omnipotent God is really a conspirator. He concealed this part of the trap and fate, and I didn't notice it, and he is really not in this world. This is a very clever arrangement. Layers of inexplicable brilliance separated from Dun Jun's body and scattered his thoughts. On the opposite side, the bald man grinned, his eyes seemed to turn into a whirlpool, trying to swallow up this inexplicable luster. Suddenly, he had devoured part of it. In his spirit, Fang Xian's indifferent voice sounded, "Even though you are a part of me, but you really understand the will of the gods, how terrifying is it?" At the beginning, Nicole's will, even in a sealed and sleeping state, almost destroyed Fang Xian's own will in an instant. At this time, he has become a god. Although this avatar received some feedback, it did not ascend to the gods together. Therefore, when Fang Xian's will forcefully crashed into the clone's ocean of consciousness, the balls of flames were quickly extinguished. Perhaps, within a second or two, Fang Xian's will truly sweep away everything, wash away the will and brand of this clone, and become a real incarnation. Has this moment finally come? In the sea of consciousness, clusters of flames were quickly extinguished, but more flames fused together and made a booming sound. "My body, you may have made a mistake, although I am grateful for the existence of everything, but your faith, but it has never been him, Lord of the Eyes. Your believers call you to come, and punish the thief who stole your brilliance and authority." The next moment, a terrifying aura came crashing down. Recommend the new book of Urban Master Lao Shi. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 500. The ocean of consciousness roared, seemingly turning into a starry universe. In the dim cosmic background, stars and vortexes emerge, forming a magnificent giant eye together. Giant eyes in the starry sky. God-level existence. At the same time, it is also the real sacrificial object of Dongxian's secret transcript. At this moment, the will suddenly poured into it. Compared with the omnipotent God whose incarnation may have disappeared, the starry sky giant eye is a real indigenous God and has a home court advantage. He has already developed countless believers in this wasteland world, and the gap to tear the seal will only be bigger than Fang Xian. The power and will that can be invested are even more terrifying. The will of the giant eye in the starry sky slammed into Fang Xian's will almost as soon as it came. Fang Xian's will gradually retreated, and more information surfaced in his heart. This is a crazy god, the level is also level 7. Of course, no matter how crazy you are, your instincts are still there. Facing me, who has stolen his authority many times, he should indeed be angry. When did this avatar get online with the giant eye in the starry sky? It should be from the time I sacrificed flesh and blood. He has become a believer in the giant eye of the starry sky, but later, the incarnation of the omnipotent God redeemed the flesh and blood from the giant eye of the starry sky. It is true that there is still an unresolved fate between me and the giant eye of the starry sky. Is this also within the plan of the all-encompassing God? At the moment when the two wills meet, the endless abyss, the bottom of hell, the existence of the two stalwarts started to move at the same time. Even if it's just a trace of breath leaking between actions, the darkness of the upper hell will be turbulent, and a large number of old wreckage will flee in a panic. At the same time as the contact of will, Fang Xian and the bodies of the giant eyes of the starry sky each obtained the other's coordinates. The body of the starry sky giant eye is a starry sky vortex bigger than a planet, roaring and sweeping towards Fang Xian's position directly. Fang Xian's planet-like body opened its eyes and began to move and avoid. Part of his sanity is still outside the seal, and once the main body goes to war, it may go crazy and out of control at any time. And the giant eyes in the starry sky, a god who is already crazy and chaotic, and he is not afraid to go a little crazy. That's what you call a madman, so it doesn't matter? Around Fang Xian's body, layers of magnificent oceans emerged, setting off 10,000-meter waves and beating the brilliance of the stars. Even now, he wasn't prepared to take back that part of his will. After all, that avatar has a strong suction force, which can prevent the return of consciousness. In addition, if the other party is allowed to grow, it is indeed a flaw in one's to look away. The other gods in the local world seem to have no intention of intervening. They may have some friction with the giant eyes of the starry sky, but they don't like me as an outsider. While chasing and fleeing, Fang Xian accurately grasped the attitude of other gods. Boom! At this moment, the giant eye of the nebula in the rear suddenly accelerated its rotation, as if turning into a black hole. A terrifying suction emerged. Even brilliance cannot escape the attraction of this mysterious black hole. It is far more terrifying than a black hole in the astronomical sense. Many deep seas were broken at once, and Fang Xian's body could not help but stagnate, and slowly moved towards the black hole. A terrible disaster befell him. City of Steam. The two figures looked at each other. From Dun Jun's body, traces of inexplicable will and spirit are constantly pouring into the vortex in the eyes of the bald man opposite. Consciousness in the sea. The will of the giant starry sky roared wildly, biting and crushing Fang Xian's will. Fang Xian couldn't escape. Even the sliver of rationality spilled out is being swallowed by the clone's will. Even between gods and spirits, it is difficult to do this, but avatars can, because they originally came from the same source. Inside and outside the seal, double lore? Fang Xian's will murmured. I want to complete my revenge, and I can even replace you and become a god of my lord. The will of the avatar is a little crazy. Even if what he absorbs is the more rational part of Fang Xian, but there is still madness in it, and the huge gap also places a heavy burden on him. It's a good trap, but, is it really useful? Fang Xian's will suddenly smiled. A layer of brilliance emerged from Dun Jun's body. The pure white brilliance seemed a little illusory, and everything around became blurred, turning into a wonderful dream. Dreamland. The body of this artifact was placed on Dun Jun's body by Fang Xian. And at this time, it directly turned into a stream of light, controlled by Fang Xian's will, and rushed into the battlefield of the Sea of Consciousness. Boom! The seemingly eternal white brilliance suddenly blocked the clone Sea of Consciousness. Fang Xian, who is driving Dreamland, is like driving a huge longship in the ocean, fiercely crashing into the will of the giant eye in the starry sky. This is the competition of will, without the slightest skill to speak of. Snapped. In an instant, the phantom of the starry sky giant eye was smashed into pieces. Impossible. The avatar will yelled frantically, how do you have such power? Because I got the help of another god, Fang Xian sighed, the god of all things God has woven a very tight net, and the power to jump out of his trap can only come from another god of great Luo. Mengxiang has the ability to teleport to all realms, and it is a real weapon of great power. With the help of it, the power that Fang Xian can transmit through the seal will only be stronger than the starry sky giant eyes. He has been showing weakness before, hiding this whole card, just wanting to see if the god of everything has other arrangements. But now it seems that the seal is indeed powerful, eliminating the interference of all the gods. No. Even if you win, you can never dominate me again. The avatar will roared hoarsely. I'm afraid you think too much. In Dreamland, Fang Xianzhuo sneered, "You are just a broken part that was unloaded from my pursuit of eternity. Why do you want to recycle it? It seems that human beings will eat themselves back excrement. Your existence was originally a mistake, perish." Above the cliff, Dun Jun suddenly woke up, and a clear realization came into his heart. He looked at the sluggish Fang Xian in front of him, his eyes suddenly changed into vertical pupils, and a ray of light fell on the opponent. Petrochemical rays. Fang Xian's avatar had a sluggish expression, and a layer of grayish-white appeared from the face, spreading continuously, and the whole person turned into a stone statue. Dun Jun put his 5 fingers together, and under the blessing of the steel skin, he seemed to have turned into an Iron Man, and he punched hard on the head of the stone statue. Snapped. The head of the stone statue was instantly torn apart, turning into dust and scattered. Crackling. Many cracks appeared on the body of the stone statue, causing the rest of the body to be reduced to small pieces of rubble, which also quickly disappeared. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 501. The Bottom of the Endless Abyss. The battle of the gods, which has made countless old wreckage tremble, has reached a critical moment. The black hole formed by the giant eye in the starry sky is about to swallow Fang Xian's planet-sized body. The feeling of imminent disaster emerged in Fang Xian's heart. But there was a crazy smile on his face. That's it, that's it. Whoosh. At this moment, a meteor-like light broke through many hells and entered Fang Xian's body. It's dreamland and that part of the will. This part of rationality returned, and Fang Xian immediately reached his previous best state, and he was no longer afraid to make a move. From his unique perspective at the level of a god, the turbulent and terrifying tribulation power, like a sea of dark clouds, covers up the sky and blocks out the sun. This is the bad luck that represents the god of all things and the giant eyes of the starry sky to deal with me, a disaster at the level of gods. Fang Xian had a clear understanding in his heart, but I have the power to control the power of robbery. The so-called tribulation power is not only disaster, but also change. Moreover, the more violent the robbery power is, the more it can be transformed into his power. This can also be regarded as a part of the power of change, which is to turn bad luck into good fortune, and turn disaster into good fortune. That is, turn bad luck into good luck. How fierce the previous bad luck was, Fang Xian felt how good his good luck was now. The surging tribulation force made his power suddenly rise to its peak, and around the planet, a layer of dark blue sea emerged. This sea is extremely deep and vast, submerging the planet, and then flooding the black hole. From the sea, tentacles covered with suckers stretched out, flapping the brilliance of the giant eyes of the starry sky. And on top of the blue-black sea, a square surrounded by eternal light emerged, each pillar with simple patterns, engraved with symbols representing dreams and fantasies. Gilu. The sea water that can submerge a galaxy is violently poured into the black hole. Suddenly, the black hole suddenly curled up, as if there were tentacles struggling inside. The next moment, it exploded violently, and countless rays of light scattered like shooting stars. Fang Xian was very calm. He knows very well how difficult it is to kill a god. At this time, he just relied on his previous weakness and suddenly counterattacked, gaining a slight advantage in the battle with the giant eye in the starry sky. The blue sea roared, drowning meteors one after another. It's a pity that it only drowned out a small part of the meteor, and the rest of the light gathered in large numbers, still forming the appearance of a giant eye in the starry sky. That vertical pupil turned red like magma at this time, and the rays of light full of danger and destruction were gathering. The destructive power of his next attack will not be weaker than that of a supernova explosion. Fang Xian looked at his ocean. In the deep sea, under tremendous pressure, the meteors finally revealed their true colors. Some of them are blood-stained robes, some are broken flags, some are broken battle axes. The only thing in common is that the bodies all carry the aura of disaster. These items, they are all symbols of different disasters. The eye of the starry sky already possesses the authority over disaster. At this time, in the deep sea, a huge black shadow in the shape of a planet emerged, and countless tentacles spread from the surface of the sphere, grabbing these symbols. Suppress, seal. That's right, Fang Xian didn't expect to be able to destroy a god with his own power. All he had to do was to tear off part of the authority of the giant eye in the starry sky and supplement his alchemist's way. At this time, facing the pursuit of the huge tentacles, those symbols quickly merged to build a smaller eye of disaster. Just being watched by it, Fang Xian suddenly felt that a catastrophe was imminent. But he didn't take it seriously at all. The catastrophe turned danger into good luck, and his tentacles became even thicker. They grabbed the Eye of Calamity and directly suppressed them into a quaint stone palace. Dreamland. If he didn't have this artifact, he really wouldn't be able to suppress and seal the Eye of Calamity in a short time. At this time, in the outside world, the terrifying rays of light in the pupils of the starry sky's giant eyes have burst out. Like a white light from a supernova explosion, countless seawater was vaporized in an instant, and a large number of tentacles broke and died. The hidden dangers of this world have been eliminated, and the disaster authority of the giant eye of the starry sky has been obtained. Fang Xian didn't even think about it. The indescribably huge body of planetary grade shrunk and hid in the deepest part of the ocean. Before the destructive explosion light came, his body suddenly became nothingness, only an immortal true spirit, thrown into the cycle of Deluo. Boom! The endless explosion radiance swept across the bottom of the abyss, and even affected some unlucky gods themselves. But Fang Xian had disappeared. In Deluo's reincarnation, Fang Xian in human form emerged. In his hands, a white ray of light emerged, sealing off a small palace, which contained the power of calamity and calamity. After waiting quietly for a while, countless samsara stars twinkled and undercurrents surged, but the giant eyes of the starry sky never came after them. Sure enough, although the giant eye of the starry sky has a certain power, it is too crazy. And, there are many kinds of Deluo. Some gods travel in the time and space of Deluo, but I travel in the reincarnation of Deluo. He is not good at this way, so he can't do anything to me. Breaking away from that world is equivalent to a dimensionality reduction blow. No matter how furious the starry sky giant eyes in that world are, they can't attack themselves. Fang Xian put away Dreamland, knowing in his heart that the real battle may have just begun. It's not just a follow-up pursuit of the giant eyes in the starry sky. More importantly, it is still the omnipotent God. As a god, with a 7th level personality in Deluo, even if Fang Xian is not specialized in prophecy, he still has a certain ability to predict. At this time, his Deluo cave mysterious view was running rapidly, and he was already looking in one direction. There, a figure slowly walked over. Those who can move freely in Deluo's reincarnation must also be Deluo's personality, who is good at playing with life and death. God of everything. At this time, he is still just an incarnation, tall and thin, with a dark complexion, and a golden mask on his face. That kind of pitch black color, if you look carefully, you will feel as deep as the night, and there seem to be countless chaotic creeps in it. God of all things, is this another incarnation of yours? It doesn't seem to be enough. Fang Xian joked. Even if the opponent's main body comes, he will not be too afraid. I am one, and I am all things are one, and all things are me. The incarnation of the omnipotent God said in a magnetic voice, I have incarnated into thousands of worlds, and I have witnessed all kinds of interesting and wonderful things. I don't have a body, my incarnation is the body. Sure enough, most of the gods are lunatics. Even if they look like normal people, they are hidden lunatics. Fang Xian nodded, knowing that this omnipotent god can actually be regarded as a neuropathy that has split thousands of personalities. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 502. I have lived too long. I have witnessed the origin and demise of many worlds, and the rise and fall of countless races. In the eternal river, only novel and interesting things can give me a sense of comfort. The God of everything said in a chant tone, the master of alchemists, the master of calamity, the God of immortality, I will witness your wonderfulness. Witness wonderful? Fang Xian sneered, could it be that you set up that trap before, so that I was almost replaced? It was just a game, for fun? That's it, if under my influence, that clone can replace the main body, it will be a different kind of wonderful. As soon as the God of all things said, he was submerged by a layer of black and blue ocean. Countless tentacles spread over, tearing him into countless pieces, constantly wearing away. I am one, and I am 10,000, and I have countless incarnations. Fang Xian easily wiped out this incarnation, but heard the voice of the God of all things echoing, you have to be careful with me, because I don't know that at some point, I will give you a small gift. Noisy. The next moment, the sea was turbulent, completely obliterating the last reverberation. Fang Xian stood in the reincarnation of Deluo, with an indifferent expression, sure enough, there are all kinds of wonderful things in the gods, don't care about him. His goals have never changed. To stand higher, to see more beautiful scenery, to pursue eternity. The mere God of all things is just a stumbling block. As long as you don't come to hinder yourself, you don't bother to step on it, but once there is an obstacle, just kick it away. However, his state can wake me up. Become a god and gain a long and long life, but it is not eternal, even if the body and spirit will not decay, but the aging of the mind will gradually change the character of the god, and it will be good to become chaotic and funny, and it may even occur. Self-destructive tendencies. Fang Xian's eyes were clear, and she instantly became enlightened. The 8th level of the Tao of alchemists should lie in spiritual practice. When an eternal mind is matched with an immortal body, it may be considered eternity. The theoretical 9th level? And to really prove eternity, you need practice. In other words, it will exist forever, and it will exist in the future. The mind will not collapse, and the original intention will not be forgotten. Maybe it is the real eternity, the 10th level? Fang Xian is wise and transparent, and has a certain grasp of the future path. At this time, I'd better complete my authority first. He looked towards dreamland. Without the interference of the giant eye of the starry sky, the eye of disaster suddenly became a lot quieter. Crash. The next moment, the illusory black sea surged into the hall, drowning the eye of calamity, and began to suppress and kill. Tentacles stretched out from the ocean, as if performing the most precise surgical operation, poking into the eyes of disaster and grabbing symbols one by one. The eye of calamity fought back fiercely, but to no avail. After the first cupful of scarlet blood was rolled out by the tentacles, various symbols representing calamity were taken out by the tentacles one after another, making the eye of disaster weaker and weaker. Ji Li, melt. Fang Xian was full of calamity and began to digest each symbol. His ability to sense and create disasters has become stronger. Sure enough, defeating other gods and seizing power is a shortcut to escalation, but unfortunately, it is too resentful. This is an act that is even crazier than a lunatic, and it is bound to receive the unanimous hostility of the gods. In the reincarnation of Deluo, Fang Xian did not know how long he had been standing. At a certain moment, a profound calamity emerged again, swallowing an illusory eye. This means that he has completely digested this part of the authority, and his own strength has been strengthened. What? When Ji Li crossed a certain limit, Fang Xian's eyes flashed. The deepest memory was unearthed, allowing him to see the coordinates of his first life and the origin of all planets. In his heart, a strong shock emerged. The original, the first, the planet of origin. Perhaps, the eternity I'm looking for can be found there. Buzz. It seems to feel the breath of the origin planet. Somewhere in the dreamland, the hidden space opens up. Fang Xian moved in his heart and came to a palace. This hall is empty, but there is a unique atmosphere. It is the taste of hometown. Fang Xian felt very comfortable walking in it, just like a wanderer returning home, with peace of mind and body. This is not a space, but a communication device. I have completely refined Dreamland, so I don't have to worry about its backlash. This kind of breath, the master who made it, is it my fellow? In Fang Xian's mind, many thoughts flashed quickly. Finally, his fingers stuck out, and Ningkong drew a symbol. The inverted triangle is the base, and a snake in the middle is the ring. This is the emblem of the original master of Dreamland. At this time, the faintly fluorescent mark merged with the space, opening up some kind of mystery. A faint shadow appeared. Fang Xian felt his heart shake just by looking at it. It was a huge snake shadow that even Deluo's time and space could hardly accommodate. Travelers from the same hometown, wandering in different dimensions. We established this alliance to give a little help to our fellow countrymen who are determined to explore the way home and the eternal way. Only the imprint of the true spirit of the hometown and those who master the coordinates of the star of origin can open this communication. It will help you, linking to all members of our alliance. Finally, may everyone go home and get the detachment and eternity they want. Nightmare Hydra. Just a message, the information contained in it, made Fang Xian shocked. Is it the Great League of Transmigrators? There was a smile on the corner of his mouth. He didn't rashly contact this must be very powerful existence, but looked at the imprint of other traversers floating out of space. Creator of spirits, Master God, Menju, Martial God, Heavenly Emperor. One after another, the ancient emblems exude a terrifying and inexplicable aura. It seems that each of them is a legend. A fellow? Fang Xian murmured, the divine power is running, and the purpose of this space is to communicate. It cannot provide its own location, nor can it reveal any information. Obviously, the creators of Dreamland have long considered the prudence of the traversers, and have done their best to keep secrets. If that's the case, what should I worry about? Fang Xian chuckled and left his name among the many marks. It was his epic, his legend. Ji Li, Alchemist, Immortality. Pursuing the brilliance of eternal calamity, turning it into a title alongside other great names. Fang Xian Deist.